The story of Round the Bend Steakhouse, that iconic steakhouse located right between Omaha and Lincoln, right off the interstate. It's something special. And TJ and Tiff Olson, the owners, you're going to learn all about them. They are unique, and I would call them originals. And in this episode, you're going to hear how their faith, their values really drive so much of what they do. How they met in 8th grade, and they knew then that they were meant for each other. And TJ knew then, too, that he was going to be the owner of Round the Bend Steakhouse. How they struggled to get that first loan that so many of us business owners can understand and relate to, and how they're able to fight through that and secure that loan. And then, very interestingly, how they define wealth, something you might be interested in as well. There are so many great stories in this episode of leadership lessons from Mayberry. Well, I'm telling you what, this is the first couple of Steakhouse, the first couple of the restaurant business. It is so great to have a husband-wife team here to talk today about what has been an amazing success with Round the Bend Steakhouse for many, many years. But yes, you guys, here's how we start this. We always start with where you grew up. What influenced you? So you're both kind of around that east Lincoln area out in the country, and Waverly and Eagle.
Yep.
So let's start with you, Tiff. Tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in Eagle, Nebraska.
Well, I'll back up just a little bit. I moved to Eagle when I was 12, so born and raised in the Denver area.
Oh, that's right.
So I came from city to Eagle, which is still a town that's bigger, but it was quite the culture shock. So
in a good or bad way?
Both.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of just the hustle and bustle of city life, and being able to go here and there, do whatever you want, movies at the drop of a dime.
And it's just down the street.
It was just a lot of we're going to do this, do that. But I didn't have the freedom there that I did in Eagle, as far as being able to just walk about, ride your bike, go to the lake. I grew up in my school, it was drive-by shooting.
We have tornado drills here.
Yeah. So
they have drive-by shooting drills.
Yeah.
That would be a positive, I think, than going to Eagle, right?
Yes. So if you need to know, you're supposed to just run in a zigzag, and you try to go low, and you try to go high, and you do all this stuff. I learned that when I was in kindergarten. So it's been interesting now that our daughter, she's 11, but just watching her grow up in a small town of what are the things, granted, there are the culture of our world now, and the pulse of it is a bit different, and she's learning some of those things, but it definitely wasn't what I came to Eagle. They were looking at me you're crazy. What do you mean you drive-bys and gangs and that kind of stuff? I also, coming from the city, you weren't very friendly because you didn't know who you were interacting with. And so that was a lot of a culture shock of just wow, people wave at each other from their cars.
I have to imagine that was one of the biggest changes. I hear that from people all the time.
Oh,
it's folks just go up and they immediately engage you. And that probably was something that, again, you weren't accustomed to, right?
Yeah, it was almost a thing where it's when people did do that in the cities, it typically was homeless, that you were immediately on guard with them. And being a little girl, you just weren't.
You were taught not to talk to them.
It was just and you kept your eyes straight. You did, you don't try to engage with people. So that was a huge culture shock. And then schooling wise, going from a large elementary to Eagle was not large at all. And then integrating the next few years into Waverly, which did grow, and I felt a little more comfortable in that aspect. But it was, like I said, it was a good and bad thing, because there were things that I missed. Just kind of, I was saying, the kind of hustle bustle, we can just run here, we can run there. Our family was really close once we moved out here. My ex-stepdad, we had moved out here for his family, and so it was kind of isolating in that side of it, and then feeling you didn't have places to really go off to.
Run up the mountains. You had the mountains right there, and you run up and snow tubing and just recreation in the mountains.
Yeah.
You got nothing here like that.
Right.
Like you hook up behind a tractor on a sled, and that's about as close as you can get.
Sporting. Like, I grew up a Denver Broncos fan, still am. The Colorado Avalanche, like all of that stuff. It was like there are these big sports, and then I didn't really care about college because that wasn't really a focus. So then it was like, okay, we have the Husker football. I'm like, okay, and then volleyball, and it just shifted. And when you're 12, you're kind of like, wow, this is a lot to take in a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, you talk about football. This guy here to your left,
yes,
football player, ended up going on to college and playing a little bit of football. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I have to imagine you're growing up out in the country, outside of Lincoln, between Lincoln and Waverly. A lot different than what Tiff just talked about.
Much different, yeah. Even our home life different. You know, she comes from a broken home. Mom and Dad had you when you were young, or when she was young. You were obviously young. You were a baby.
Yes, my mom was 18 when she had me. My dad was 20, and they were married for a year and then split.
Yep.
So,
and I come from a complete home. Mom and Dad still married to this day. Live in the same house we grew up in, just east of Lincoln. 3 siblings. I'm the youngest of 4. Like just completely different home life.
Yeah.
When she was here and we started dating, and I could finally drive, like I just get to go. Mom and Dad are like, "Yep, see you later." And her mom wants to know where you going, who you going to be with. She was the first, you know. She's the oldest, and my parents are. I'm the 4th kid. Like just be home later. Let us know where you're going to land.
I'm telling you, TJ, we have 3, and it is so different with our 3rd than our first 2. It's just like, whatever, run out in the street. That's fine, you know.
And mom and dad, you know, with 4 kids, you know, they struggled. Dad always worked. Mom worked. We had a great life. But after Mom and Dad bought Round the Bend back in 1995, the other kids, my siblings, were all moved out. And then the business starts to do a little better, and they start to get some money, and there's nobody to spend that on but TJ. So TJ's going into 9th grade with all the Tommy Hilfiger stuff and, you know, decent car, and Mom and Dad pay for my gas, and my siblings are like, we hate you so much.
I was just going to say, no way are they going to love this. I mean, they're like, you little spoiled brat,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So.
But you had this country spread that you're out there. What was a summer day? I love to ask this question. What was a summer day like? Because that's when you get all the freedom, right? And all the time. When you're 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yep. So,
what was a day spent doing in July?
You know, we'll jump back to it, I'm sure, in here and there. But Mom and Dad bought the restaurant when I was 11, and I've worked in it ever since. And it is a true family business. So our summers, they were spent at work. We all worked. I've done everything in the restaurant from washing dishes to now the owner and everything in between. But the summers were spent working. I remember there were a couple of vacations. We always took family vacations in the summer. Dad would close the restaurant and go camping up in South Dakota. That was always a lot of fun. Running around the country, we had 4-wheelers and 4-wheelers and go-karts and stuff. So we'd run around on those. Just down the road from us, folks that are familiar with Lincoln, there's a place called Sky Ranch Acres. And it was a bunch of people that got together, if I remember the story right. They built houses on this huge chunk of land, and they put a runway in. And everybody built their houses and had airplane hangars underneath of them. And that kind of grew to be a bigger development, but the people that lived on the runway had planes. Well, all the kids from high school would be there, so I'd ride my bike down there, and we'd play football on the runway. And then you'd be watching, there's a plane coming in, run off the runway and run up, watch the plane land,
this is
and
great.
They'd wave as they'd go by. Like, just love that. Going down in the creek or crick, depending upon which, what do you call it?
Pop or soda?
Yeah, pop or soda.
That
we could. It's a crick.
It's a crick. And it's soda.
It's a crick in your neck. It's a creek. I don't know. We could be on that all day. Anyway, I digress. Go down and play in Stevens Creek, and catching frogs in the pond next door and cooking up frog legs with the neighbor. We had some great neighbors, the Abbotts that lived across the street from us. Harrison. They're still friends of ours to this day. They've got a ranch out in Hyannis. I spent a month out there in the summer one year when I was like 14. One of the best experiences of my life, being out there fixing fence and windmills and riding horses. And It was great. So
yeah, idyllic. By the way, how good were you at getting off the runway in time when a plane's coming in?
Real good. There was a few times. I mean, the parents would be out there and they'd be watching, but there was a few times they'd come and buzz over our head. And that's your warning. Get your butts off the runway. So
I love it. Oh man, that right there is worth a book. Right there, growing up those summers.
Yep, it was a lot of fun.
You know, one of the things that stands out to me is I just got done talking to John Higgins, who similarly worked all the way as a kid and just always had a job, always was doing something. That work ethic that was instilled, in you to have to work at the restaurant. A, didn't sound like you resented it.
No.
And B, was that just something? I mean, did you ever have to be pulled into work, or was it like, look, I want to go?
I think I probably had to be pulled just as a kid, like you want to do other things.
Right.
As Tiff and I started dating, we started dating back in 8th grade, and she, you want to go out on the weekends with your boyfriend. Well, the weekends in a restaurant, you're always working. I never felt like I was pulled into work. I enjoyed it. I knew I had this drive and this want to work while I'm young, build something bigger than my parents had, and be able to enjoy life when I'm younger. My dad always had a job. He was a volunteer fireman on Southeast Fire for 35 or 40 years. He was a chief. He ran a bingo hall for him. He had his own construction company. It was always working. And Mom was the computer technology. I call her a computer nerd for Waverly School District. All self-taught. Never went to college a day in her life. Drove the school bus for the school district. Made the routes. Like she was kind of a pillar in the school. Like you had a computer problem, you go to Vicky. And they were just always working, always, and it just rubbed off on me. My brother was always working. My sister went to college; she was a teacher. My other sister worked in the restaurant. We always had jobs. We were always helping and always working. It was just a part of life. Like we knew you had to work,
and that stays with you, I imagine, today, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just ingrained. You know,
Tiff's got to pull me back sometimes and be like, hey, remember your wife and daughter that are at home? Why don't you come see us?
Yeah, I know. And that's what a good partner does. And boy, I can't wait to really explore that as we get into the show about the partnership that you both have and how that works. But before I do, we got to get to the big part here. You guys meet in high school, right?
Junior
high.
Junior, middle school, whatever you want to call it.
So who approached who? How do we know? How'd this go down?
Oh, you want to take this one?
I love this one.
This is one of your favorites.
I don't have a great memory, and my wife can attest to that, but I can remember exactly the day that Tiff approached me to ask me out. And in our day, I feel old when I say that. In our day, when you asked somebody out, that meant you wanted to be boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out on a date and just get to know you a little, but I'm going to go date this guy, and will you go out with me meant will you be with me?
Yeah.
So sitting in the back of Mr. Ropty's science class, about 4 rows back, and she's sitting on my back left, one desk back. And there's a short pause in the class, and everybody kind of starts talking, and she comes up. She's wearing a white Adidas shirt with a yellow Adidas emblem in the middle of it.
This is great.
Hair up and back in a tight ponytail with a white ribbon, dark blue jeans, and her Doc Martens. Looking fine. It's so far out of my league. Like I was the chubby kid that was still growing into his body and figuring out if he could play football or not. And like she comes up and she just asked. And I remember being like internally like, oh my God, like my palms got sweaty and that's not me. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, I'll get back to you. And then looked back and I'm like, why did I just say that? You say yes. She's smoking hot. What are you doing, dummy?
And I was like,
yeah,
what?
she was just like, excuse me?
You're like, no, you won't get back to me. It was a 30-second offer or no?
Very much like, I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
But very quickly after that class, and that's where things get cloudy for me. But yes, absolutely want to be your boyfriend. This is awesome. And, just getting to know her over the time. But yeah, 8th grade is when we started to date.
Man alive.
On again, off again, all the way through high school.
Yeah. So what did you see in this big lug here? What did you see?
We've had that conversation kind of recently. We just celebrated our wedding anniversary this week. So just
18 years.
Yeah, reminiscing back over things. It's going to sound, I don't know if it's going to sound strange or what, but so I've always had deep faith. Like I grew up with it. And there was just something about him. It was the way he conducted himself, how he treated people, just how he spoke and carried himself, that I was like, God, like, just like gave me, I don't want to say a vision, but it's like I could just see there was something different about him. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but it's intriguing. And I want to get to know him more. Like, some of it was his stature.
Yeah.
I was just
big
like,
guy, yeah.
I was like, I come from 2 daddy issues. I had a stepdad who didn't want me and a dad who had me very young and didn't know what to do with me. So we've had a lot of conversations of that, I was looking for a complete opposite of what I had been introduced to. But I was like, there's something about him that he's just manly. And it was this like pull.
In 8th grade, I was manly.
8th grade, I know, right?
That's a compliment right there. My voice is like in 8th grade going, it's screeching. So
so there was just a pull there. I didn't really know anything about the restaurant side of his life. I just knew him inside of school. And like I said, it was just the way he conducted himself, how he spoke to the other teachers around, how he treated people, or it was just like...
You got to remember, Mom, like I said, Mom worked in the school.
Right.
There were many a times I had my own mother come in my class and sit behind me because the teacher... They didn't go to the principal. They went to Vicky.
Yeah.
You were one of those kids.
TJ's having a little trouble paying attention, and I'd walk into class, 8th grade, walk into class, and there's Mom sitting right behind my desk. I go, oh, man.
And I guarantee you look back at that today and go, thank you, Mom, don't you?
Yes, and to bunny trail a little bit, if you don't mind. I tell this story, and my mom was a special kind of disciplinarian. She never hit me. My sister Kim wouldn't let her, especially when I was a baby. He's too cute to smack. No, I wasn't, and I needed it. But anyway, I got in trouble in junior high and went down to my mom's office, got told I had detention after school. And she's like, all right, fine. I will not pick you up. You have to walk home from school. We live 9 miles from school, down 148th Street, which is the busiest intersection between O Street and Cornhusker Highway.
Yeah.
She said, you'll walk home, and you'll walk the whole way, don't get a ride from friends, and I might come pick you up if I get off work and get home, the bus route done. And if you're further than I think you should be because you maybe got a ride from somebody, I will take your butt back to the school, and you'll start again. And I did that. I walked, and I had friends stop. Hey, TJ, you need a ride? No, parents taking their kids. So you need a ride? No, my mom said I can't have one. I walked all the way to Prairie Home one time, and she picked me up there. And then the next time, I made it all the way from Waverly to Holdridge, and she picked me up there. I tell you what, you straighten up pretty quick.
Real quick,
if you know your mom is going to make you walk home from school 9 miles, and she'll take your butt back to the school or sit in your class. Like, special kind of disciplinarian. So it was an interesting, and I learned quick. So when I say, she says, I spoke to teachers differently, it's because there were consequences if I didn't.
I did not know that.
Without a doubt.
That's one of the other students with you. It was just like, wow, like that's different.
Mom is special.
Well, and that is a great story. And again, bless her heart for taking that kind of interest in her son. One of the things that you guys kind of had a Storybook high school too, or Storybook, I should say, high school. I mean, you both end up homecoming king, homecoming queen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You are the football star. You are a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. I mean, kind of that idyllic high school. And Tiff, I think the interesting thing to me is knowing the challenges, right, that you had growing up. Mm-hmm. How'd you work through that? I know TJ probably played a part in that, but
yes.
What gave you strength to obviously stand out to your classmates and achieve and excel?
Yes. So I'll back it up to we broke up our freshman year. Had been broke up, and that was my wild child year. My ex-stepdad, he was a pastor. So growing up as a pastor's kid, I did the typical stereotype of that. And throughout that year, I made horrible decisions, a lot of drinking, dabbling in a little bit of drugs, just talking to any boy that was like, oh, hey, you're kind of cute. I was like, oh, thanks.
The daddy issues sneaking in.
I was just so many, it was a great year because I was a cheerleader all 4 years. It was a great year on that side. And out in Colorado, like, I wouldn't have gone out for things like that because, first of all, you're just white noise in a class of 2,000 people. And it just wasn't an option financially in that area. But then Nebraska's a little more affordable in those things. But I ended up, we ended up started talking again. And TJ does not remember this conversation, but it's a pivotal moment in my life where he was like, basically all that crap you've got going on, those people you're hanging out with, like, they're not bad, good, and different. But he was like, I have a trajectory for my life. I have plans for football. I want to go hopefully be pro. But if that doesn't work out, like, I have this drive of wanting to take this business that my parents have, franchise it someday. Like, he was like, what you're doing is going to take me off course, and I'm not willing to do that. And it was kind of, like I said, like this vision, like the way that he talked, like, I was just like, okay, I need to, like, get back on the right path here.
And how old were you guys then? Were you
But a sophomore.
Yeah,
Okay.
sophomore.
Wow.
Yep. So super young. And I will say, like, as being the oldest, there is a maturity as well as being female of just where you're at. But him being the baby of 4 and his brother being so much older, and he did have older parents. Like, my mom was the same age as his brother. So there was just, I think, maturity of how he spoke because he had 3 older siblings plus older parents that just drew me into that. And so that ended up putting us on a path for high school that I think that I would have definitely been a train wreck the rest of our high school career had I not had him just speaking that way. And then as we started through high school, I got more into my faith and then introduced him there. I was kind of like, okay, if this is going to be, like, really serious, like, you need to know, like, this part of me, and I would really hope that you would want that for your life as well. And
yep.
And away you went.
And that's, you know, she's talking about what she sees in my life, and I had a trajectory, and what you're doing now is going to derail that, so I don't want to be a part of that. I saw something in her and her family. Her dad, her ex-stepfather is a pastor, and her mom, just respect her so much. She was such a leader inside their home, and they had something, and I didn't know what it was. We talk about that now. Like, people come and talk to us, and every now and then you'll hear, there's just something different about you guys. What's different? Well, it's Jesus. Jesus is what's different. And she had that. And I didn't know what that was. I was baptized as an infant, Lutheran, went to church a little bit, and then the church pissed Dad off, and we never went again. It was in our family. It was in our, we'd pray at Christmas. We'd still go to church at Christmas with Grandma, those kind of things. But it was never a part of our daily life. And we started having those conversations. Your mom made the absolute worst, driest burritos in the world and had me over. We had good conversation, and that's when my walk with Christ started. I was 15 years old in my parents' basement and gave my life to Christ, and I just wanted that. So together we were changing each other's lives without really knowing how much we were changing each other's lives. I don't remember that conversation she talks about when I told her, what you're doing isn't my jam, and you better change or I'm out. And it's just we were changing each other's lives so much and so open to that, and come from so, opposites attract. We're so different in our backgrounds, so different. So to be where, looking back now at all those stories and stuff, just that oil and water that mixed and came together, and even now to this day, we say it. She's the woe to my go. Yeah,
and I want to, like I said earlier, we're going to get there. I promise, because partnerships in business, and so many folks who watch this, right, are business leaders, business owners. Partnerships are tricky. And so this is why I want to explore it for sure, because you guys have made it work and you made it thrive. But here's where I want to get back to. You mentioned he had said to you at this tender age, he figures out, hey, look, I want to run this business. I might want to franchise. I mean, you're moving. Your mind is going. At that, what was it that set you off to say, this is what I want to do at such a young age, to know what your future looked like?
I think I just have to look back at just being in it. Dad bought it when I was 11, so we're talking 15 years old or so, and over that course of time, the 4 years, 5 years, whatever it may have been, we were in it.
Yeah.
Like, there's stories of the old place. The old place.
Yeah.
It was built on 2x10 joists, sat on dirt floor with water lines running through it. Every winter they would freeze. You'd go in the morning, and turn the water on and just wait for the psst. Oh, there it is. Turn the water off. And we had strategic holes cut in the floor so we could crawl in there and get them fixed that we would just put back down and screw in because you knew you'd have to get back in there. And just seeing my dad doing those things and kind of making something out of absolutely nothing, I loved that part of it. And I kind of came into my own through that time of doing everything. We got so busy where, you remember the old place, the lot across the street, Dad bought that for parking because people were parking on the highway and in the town and people were getting pissed and like standing there and going out and calling names. We didn't have buzzers back in that day, but yelling names across the street and handing them the menus at the door and being like, your table's that one that's open back there. Good luck getting there. You know, I don't think we can get in trouble, statute of limitations on this one, but being 15, 16, 17 years old and people wanting beer and we can't get it. I can't get it for them. So it's, well, the cooler's right in front of me. Reach in there and get what you want. And then put the right money on the counter and I'll make sure it gets in the cash register. Like, just small town.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little town stuff. But I think it was just seeing, Dad always working, being in there and actually being a part of that business.
Right.
Dad bought Round the Bend unbeknownst to Mom, unbeknownst to the family. Came home and said, hey, we own a bar in South Bend, Nebraska.
He didn't win in a poker game or anything.
No. I don't think so anyway. But bought it, and it was just all hands on deck. And I think I found my groove. Like, you know when you start to do something, this is what I'm meant to do. I loved it. I love the people. I love BSing with them. The small town. We still have people from the old place, Larry Murray. One of the guys that sat at the bar then sits at my bar now. And we have same conversations we had 25 years ago about stuff. Like, I just love it. It's one of my favorite things to do is go out and sit. We got half a dozen or more guys that sit at the bar and have their beers in the afternoon. I love that. Going out and BSing with them and shooting it back and forth at each other is just so much fun. So I just found my groove. I think I saw that and saw Dad building this thing and it was catching on and it was working. And Dad was a serial entrepreneur, I think you'd call him. He just did. And that's where I get it from. I'm just going to do it. We'll figure it out along the way. I don't have a plan. We're just going to do it.
That's what a lot of entrepreneurs do, right?
You
they
have
just
to,
jump in.
Otherwise, you get in your own head.
Right.
And you find a way to not do it. You can always justify why not to do it, or why to not go forward with it. Well, why not? Just give it a shot.
Well, here it is. It's 2012, and you're ready to buy it now. Or your dad is ready to sell, or vice versa, or maybe all of it together, right?
Kind of everything together, I'd say.
I can't imagine a bank to a young guy is just ready to run out there and say, hey, we're going to throw all this money at you. What was it like, first off, to just make that transaction happen? And then number two, let's just start with that. What was that like to make that transaction happen, to make it go?
So it was about a 2-year process, 2.5-year process. We brought on Jacob Miloshik.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. He is one of the 3 reasons Round the Bend is the way it is now. He'll deny that, but he is one of the 3 reasons.
I believe it, yeah.
But we met with him. Business was bad, 2008-ish. Recession. Everything's bad. We're a destination. Nobody's driving a long ways because gas is $400 a gallon. They're not driving out to see us. So we closed down to just Thursday nights, Fridays, and Saturdays. That was it. Hemorrhaging money in places wasn't working. Brought on Jacob and said, Jacob, do you think this could work? And he sat down with my dad and I. Dad's the only owner. He's sole owner. I'm just working for Dad. And Jacob said, there's money to be made here. We need to make some changes, some tweaks. But everything's above board. Every penny in, we know where it's coming from. And every penny out, we know where it's going. Because Dad was of the era. The less Uncle Sam knows about, the better, right? Cash is king.
Right.
Except it doesn't really work that way. And the business was struggling. It wasn't looking good.
Especially on paper.
Yeah. My wife and I had sat and talked. And I'm like, I really want this. You know this. From 8th grade, you've known I want this. And even though it's struggling and it doesn't make sense, I feel like God's calling me to buy this from Mom and Dad. Let Mom and Dad retire. They've worked their entire life to provide for me and my siblings. I really want to do this. And only because of God, she said, yeah, sounds good. Let's do that, honey. And we started with Jacob. He said everything above board. We took the next couple of years to make it look really good on paper. Opened up more days of the week. That was one of my first things. Hey, we're going to open back up and I'll work them. all work. My sister was there. She was working. She was trying to go to school to be a nurse to kind of get out of the restaurant industry. She saw the writing on the wall. Restaurants aren't succeeding right now. I need to do what's best for my family. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to dive into the restaurant. And here we go. Dad had tried to sell it before, so he had a dollar amount that he was looking for. And over the next 2 years, we made it look good on paper. Accounted for all the dollars in, and it made money. In the first 6 months Jacob worked with us, he paid off about $30,000 in credit card debt that we had racked up paying our taxes. That's how bad it was. We were paying our taxes on credit cards because there was no money. You know, Dad had some cool guns and some cool stuff, but because it was cash, it got spent. You know, it needed to be reinvested in the business and those kind of things. And we just listened to Jacob, and he gave us the great direction. And Jacob's always been, here's my guidance. It's your business, though. So we took his guidance, and it worked out great. So to your point, no bank is going to give us the money, right?
Right.
There is a phenomenal story in that. And we got to meet Chris Greenfield, a phenomenal individual, man of God, and in the bank. And Jacob introduced us, and he said, here it is. Here's all the black and white, Chris. And Chris said, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's figure this out. And he had just moved to a smaller bank and went in, and I will cliff notes this as much as I can because it is a pretty long story. We got to the point where it's ready to buy. $1.2 million at 25? How old were we?
No, we were 28.
28.
Yeah.
$1.2 million is what I needed, and I had nothing to leverage against it. Nothing. Like, nothing. No money in my bank account, no nothing. But Chris said, I'm on board. I want this for you guys. I see it. I see your calling. Let's do this. So we brought in Chris and then the president of the bank, I believe at the time, some bigger higher-ups in the bank. And they came in on a day we were closed, on a Sunday, I believe it was. And they came in. I met them at the door, and I said, hey, guys, I'm going to show you a start to finish. This is one of Jacob's ideas. He said, I'm going to show you everything we do at Round the Bend that makes Round the Bend different. Brought them in, how we seat you, how we bring your drink to you, what we do. Took them back in the kitchen, showed them how we cut steaks. Everything's hand cut in-house. 40 days wet age. We use the highest quality beef. This is how we prepare it. This is what makes us different. And showed them all that stuff, and probably took 2 hours just to show them the business. And then we sit down in the dining room after all that, and I poured my heart and soul out to them, and they said, that's all really nice, and I'm paraphrasing here. That's all really nice, and that's neat, but this probably isn't going to work. You're in the middle of nowhere. We're in 2012. We're still recovering. Hotels and restaurants are the two worst businesses to get into. Why would you want to do this? Just kind of breaking me down. And Chris is sitting there, and I'm just like, no, it's going to work. And they said, TJ, you need and I don't remember exactly what it's called. I'll call it a business valuation. These numbers have to come back, and they have to come back in this window.
An appraisal.
And if they don't come back in this window, we're out. But if they do, we can do it. And it was pretty lofty numbers. And Chris even had told me at one point, like, they're covering their butt. You're not going to be able to hit these numbers. And I looked at him at the end of that, and I said, you know what, guys? You're going to look at me like I got three heads, and that's fine, but God's got a plan here. I know I'm supposed to be here. This is not just for me to make money. This is to bless single moms that want to work. This is to bless other families, a place for people to be gathered around their table and enjoy some time over a meal. It's going to work. And they're like, oh, that's a cool story, but we'll see you later, and shook my hand. Like I said, long story, and that's broke down as tight as I can. And that was a Sunday. That Friday following, the valuation came back in. And the valuation, because of God and God only, came back 3 times their highest number that they had put down. They couldn't say no. It made all the sense on paper. Yeah. For all the work we did over the last 2 years and all the labor hours Jacob and his team put into it to make it look good and show that this business is profitable and this is a good decision. And Chris called us on the phone, and he's like, guys, let's do it. And he called a meeting that week, brought him in. He had paperwork drawn up, and I'd say in about a month we closed.
Yep.
Boom, it's ours.
That is a phenomenon. I mean, I sat here. I did not want to interrupt you one time because I'm telling you, I think any business owner and anyone in life that, this is about perseverance. This is about a belief in what you have. And sometimes, I mean, even if the valuation didn't come in, and as a banker, I would have been sitting there going, how do we not? This guy and this couple They believe so much in what they're doing. So congratulations on that, because that is truly about perseverance and a belief in yourself. So when you get to this point, tell me what you're thinking, how you're feeling. I mean, you're all in 100%. Any doubts on your mind?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think if there are doubts in there. I don't think there were. I think because we were on the same page, and it was like our prayer life in that season and just seeking God and just being like, as TJ says, like, slam the door shut or bust it open because we're some of your dumb kids.
I'm God's dumb kid. Like, I either have to have it slammed in my face or kick it wide open to where I can't miss it.
Yeah.
And that was the free time valuation for me.
Yeah.
That's what that was. When that came back and the bank could not say no.
Yeah.
When it came back and it met all their requirements that they laid out, they couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And that was me hearing God say, all right, go.
Yeah.
It's time.
So,
And he had to come to Jesus in the dining room one night when things were just really bad and struggling prior to Jacob coming in.
Yeah, it was late 2008 or early 2009.
He was like just sitting in the dining room, like having that exact prayer, like, either slam these doors open this weekend or shut it and I'll go mow lawns. Like, I'm not going to pursue this forward for the sake of the restaurant, but also we had found out we were pregnant, and he was just like...
She was pregnant. I wasn't pregnant.
Well,
We weren't pregnant. You were pregnant.
But just like, I'm not going to like do this to my family.
Yeah.
Kind of show up. Like,
And
I
think
need
that
to
was
see
part
you,
of it.
God.
I had your...
Oh, yeah.
I had you. I had to take care of you and provide for you. And her mom is actually the one that was like, hey, TJ, have you like turned that business over to God? Have you really sat down and said? And that's when I went over and sat in the dining room. It was still Dad's at that time. But I was just like, I don't want this for me. I want this for you, God. Let's glorify your name somehow. And it has. Sitting here with you right now, talking about God on a podcast that someone will hear, his name will be glorified through Round the Bend. Like, he's got that plan all the way through.
Yeah.
And I think that was, for me, that was part of the motivation. I don't have to prove to Tiff, but she's got my back. She was like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah. And I think that does stem back to back in 8th grade, where it was like, I know your drive, your dream, the desire that's here. And we've kind of always been, as a couple, like, we want to be bigger than ourselves, whatever that looks like. And so then when this came on a restaurant side, my, I guess, business brain was more like, how do we like better people's lives? How do we impact? How do we do something bigger than just steak and potatoes on a plate? Like, anybody can do that. If you're looking for just a meal, you can run through fast food.
There's lots of places that can put food in front of you.
Right.
And so it was like, when he finally had this moment was here and it was kind of all unfolding, it was like, well, I don't know how we can not do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want, and we've had this conversation, I didn't want him to drive by and see it thriving under someone else.
Yeah, Dad was ready to sell, and I didn't want to see somebody else drive by. And I didn't want to drive by it in 10 years and see the owners driving a gold-plated car. Like, missed the opportunity there, didn't you, dipstick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have an interesting quote that TJ shared with me. You talk about you want to be more than steak and potatoes. You wanted to create something. And obviously, so much of what you are all about is driven by faith, your belief in God. But you have a saying that says you want to be an impactor, not an influencer.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
I don't want to influence you to order this certain steak, have this drink. Like, great. Like, this is a flash in
the pan. You don't want to buy what I'm wearing because of who I am. Look at me.
Look at how.
Follow me because of who I am.
It was like, I don't want to influence you for like a one-time purchase, or I don't know. It feels very cheap to me. It's kind of like oh, great, or I wasted my money because I listened to that person. I feel like where influencers have come nowadays, but I was like, let's like impact. What can we do that you're like, whether I ever know them or they know who I am, like, that event in my life changed who I was, changed the course of how my life is now, changed my thought process, whatever. Like, that there's this like lasting impact that I personally it goes back to faith of like, God wants to do things for eternal purpose, not for like, oh, great, like you had a good moment.
Right. But how do you apply that to your culture?
I have an example that just happened here recently. I was reading through some of our reviews online, and we're incredibly blessed. 99% of them are fantastic.
They are.
But one just the other day I ran across the impact over influence. Tiff put these conversation starter cards in our 6-pack holders on every table in the restaurant, at the bar and everywhere. And their questions as simple as, if you were a superhero, which one would you be?
I like it.
Or if you had the attention of the world for 30 seconds, what would you say and why? So some deeper, some little fun ones. But I was just reading in a review the other day, and it said, we went around the bend, it was a great meal, great service, but one thing that was amazing was we found these pack of questions on the table. We're not sure if they were put there by the owner or the last table that ate before us, but I actually had great conversation with my kids and genuine time with them. That's an impact.
Oh, without a doubt.
So it's those, like, and you'll see me too, I'm getting a little emotional. It's just those little things that it change that day. That kid maybe is going through something, and it opens them up to say, Mom, I'm really struggling here. We've had those times with our own daughter. So if it changes that a little bit, that's an impact over influence. We don't want you to choose around the bend because TJ's funny on social media. We want you to choose because, man, we really feel value when we come out there, and we feel like part of their family. We can message them on Facebook, and TJ's replying back, and, hey, we'd love to serve you, and build a family atmosphere and impact them. Don't just influence them for a minute.
And clearly you guys have done that. And there's something else that when we talk about that, creating something more than just a place where people can come and eat, you guys you provide a place where conversations happen, right? And lives can be improved and bettered, right? But one of the things I want to ask is, when you look back to, here it is, 2008 through 2012. You got to make this thing go. What were 2 or 3 things that you did that you said, this is how we turn this thing around? This is what we are going to do to make sure that the books are better and clients are patrons are happier? Were there a couple of very intentional things that you did?
I would say, and I think you'll agree with me, the number one thing we did was consistent hours.
Absolutely. Yep.
We went, because Dad would, like I said, we'd go on vacation in the summertime, and he'd just close. Well, being a destination point, you drive out one time from Omaha for 30 minutes and they're not open, I ain't going back there. So consistent hours was huge.
Yes. And being, I'm sorry, babe.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, and being closed Sundays. That was a big thing as far as.
And that was a selfish thing on our part, because we wanted to be able to be there.
I think it was twofold.
But I mean, we wanted to be able to go to church and have a day where we know we don't have to work. And also for our RTB family, our people.
I didn't want people. I didn't want people having to pick between family time, God, and work. There should be no choice there. It should just be, and I am a huge believer in a Sabbath. And it's like, you have to give yourself a day to rest, and you have to give your building a day to rest. You have to, nothing works 24/7 all year long. Like, you have to give rest to it. And so that was going off of, these are the consistent days we're going to be open, and then we're going to be closed Sundays, which that conversation has come up many times since we've owned it, of like people pushing, like,
well, Jacob, for instance, he was against it. He's like, why, you're missing a Sunday. People want to go out after church and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but our God's big enough to provide and make this work 6 days out of the week. And if we can't make it work, Tiff made this comment, if you can't make it work 6 days out of the week, you're not going to be able to make it work.
I was like, something else is wrong if you're going to, because it was also, most places aren't open. They're like whole hours on Sundays. It's a modified, like 5 to 10 or whatever. I was like, if I need 5 extra hours out of that week to make this business run, we've got bigger problems and leaks way back here. And we can't, I was like, I can't justify out being like, I needed that 5 hours of business. And then I think that kind of made him like, oh. Yeah,
so I'd say the hours thing. Back to what Jacob said in the beginning, every penny is accounted for. There was no, for the first 3 years, I'd say there was no extra beer getting taken out. There was no liquor bottle getting taken out. There was no steaks going home with Tiff and I. Everything was accounted for. We knew where it all was. And that was just to kind of set that foundation of how we were going to run it.
And talk about the importance for a business owner, especially in a business like restaurant, bars, but for any business, the importance of really having, if you can't do it from an accounting standpoint, making sure you have someone who can rack those numbers and make it really understood to you as well.
Yep.
How important is that for a business owner?
One of the most important things. That would probably be the third thing. That, three things, consistent hours, accountability on everything in and out, and then surrounding ourselves with people that are smarter than us and better than us at what we do. Bring them around and make sure they know that. Like, you are a part of this team because you are better at this than me. Jacob is that one.
Yep.
He knows I'm not a numbers guy. That's one of my faults. Like, I don't understand them, but I don't care to understand them because I trust Jacob with them. We've built that trust over time, and we found that relationship that I can trust him in that. The people like Jacob will tell you, TJ told me forever, nobody can cook steak better than him. He'll never find somebody to run the grill. Come to find out, there's a lot of people that can run that grill better than me. And I've got 2 or 3 of them right now, and I've had a dozen others. Like, there's people better at my job than I am, and I'm okay to let them do it. Kind of that humble yourself.
Right.
Let somebody else make you better. And that's what we've done. We've just surrounded ourselves with people that are better at it than we are.
Yeah, and that's one of the principles that you shared with me beforehand is something else. Jacob is getting a lot of love here on this podcast, and deservedly so.
He deserves it, yep.
But one of the things you said is, he taught you that surround yourself with people smarter than you guys, that are better than what you can do. And he really planted that. And so often business owners have a hard time giving up what they're great on the grill. They're great at maybe being out front, right? And they work in that business all the time, and they never get a chance to work on it.
Right.
The importance of how this really helped you grow the business. Who can I give that to you, Tiff? Like, how important was that in helping you grow?
Well, I say we unfortunately didn't get to implement that part right away. We ended up having our daughter 13 weeks premature right after we had bought the restaurant. So that actually got kind of flipped up on its head. And TJ ended up being the one working in the business like 18, 19 hours a day. And me and Izzy were in isolation for 2 years. So once we were able to, I guess, get our bearings with that part of, or that like season of our life, and we started having the conversation of like, what does wealth look like for us? And that was to bring a general manager in and to bring in a head cook and all of that. Then we were able to turn it from working in it to on it. And I think that's when things really flourished.
They really did.
For the
and there
restaurant.
again, Jacob said that. He's like, define, he asked, he'd read this somewhere, and he's like, I'm doing it in my own business. I want you guys to do it too. Define wealth. What is wealth to you? And Tiff and I sat and talked, and we're like, some money in the bank is great. I always had a dream of having that kid knock on my door and like, hey, I'm going to go on a missions trip to blah, 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 and it's going to cost me $5,000, and I'm raising money. Would you donate anything? And I wanted to be the one to be like, how much was it to go? Well, it's $5,000 to go, and be able to scratch a check and hand it to him and be like, go glorify God. Here you go. Like, I wanted that, and we have been able to do that tenfold since the start of Round the Bend. But he said, define wealth, and it was time. Wealth is time, and it's time together, and it's time with our daughter, and it's time to enjoy being a family. So how do you get that time? Well, you lose some of the dollars in your bank account to pay for somebody to come and help you run your business.
Right.
Find somebody smarter.
And I think the other thing for some folks, yes, you may lose some dollars, but you may have found too that, with a great staff around you, that the dollars just kind of keep growing, don't they? A little bit.
It did.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah.
How they were better and more dollars came in. And it was great. You might have lost, get a couple of great people, and you might not have some money for a while, but then all of a sudden, like you just said, wow, things are going really good.
Yeah.
And I got to go to my daughter's recital, or I got to take my wife out on a date, or we got to go on vacation, and man, my phone didn't ring the entire time we were gone. That's wealth.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
That
bet.
is it right there.
Steps to freedom. You guys have shown a lot of courage just to be able to buy the business, what you had to do to get in. But you also showed, I thought, a tremendous amount of courage too during the COVID. I enjoyed watching what you were doing on Facebook. There's 2 words I would describe: the humor that you threw out in a dark time, right? Some of your stuff was just so funny. And also, again, saying, look, we got to find a way through this. And one of the things that you shared with me is that you learned something very quick during COVID, and that was the ability to pivot. Yeah. Explain that a little bit.
That was like the first week. So we called Jacob. Jacob, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, they're telling we got to close. How are we going to pay our staff? And he called us in, and we sat down, and he's got other businesses, and he was having meetings with them, and he's incredibly bright. And he's like, okay, this is what I see, guys. This is how this is going to play out financially. This is what the government says they're going to do. But if they don't, and here's where the reality really set in for us, you've got 28 days until you're bankrupt. We worked really hard. We've talked about it really hard to get where we are. But I owed Dad money. I had to pay him. I have to pay my employees. I have to pay my lease. I got loans out for stuff. I got to pay for my house. I've got we had just built our new house. It was 2018 we moved in.
Yeah.
I've got a brand new house to pay for. We've got some rental properties that we had purchased because things were going good because I had people smarter than me weren't running my business. And all of a sudden, Jacob says, 28 days until you are done. 28 days until I have to pick my phone up and call my dad and say it's over. It's done. Too many years we had invested to let that happen. And I was like, we're not doing it. It's not going to happen. So we went back to our business and said, hey, guys, it's going to be rough. It's going to be really, really rough. And we were transparent with them and said, hey, what ideas do you got? Because we're 28 days from being done. And every single one of our employees was like, not on our watch. So we all got together and we sat in the office and just brainstormed and what can we do, this and that and the other. And Curtis, I think it was, our executive chef at the time, Curtis Norton, and he's like, everybody's doing these press conferences. Why don't we just do a press conference and just let people know? And it spitballed a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I'll go home and get my jacket and my sport coat, and I'll be the president and CEO. And that turned into Curtis being my secretary of state, and Tiff was the first lady, and we did press conferences every day because you remember every day things changed.
Yes.
Hey, you can have people in your restaurant. Hey, you can't have people in your restaurant. Hey, you can have 25%. Nope, just kidding. You can't have anybody. Yeah. And I will give a shout out to the governor Ricketts at the time. His chamber, his office, his people did a phenomenal job to the point where I called in, I wrote a letter to our local senator and said, this rule's stupid. You guys are morons. You're going to run us all out of business. Change it or we're going to revolt. This is not going to be okay. Like so many of us did. So many of us were putting our foot down. You're overstepping. And I got a call the next day and I had a 20-minute conversation with his chief of staff. The governor's chief of staff called me directly and said, hey, I got this letter and I understand what you're saying, but you've got to understand where we're coming from. Took the time to lay it out. And at the end of it, I just said, okay, you've got a job to do and I've got a job to do. We'll find some common ground. We'll agree to disagree on a lot of this. But, okay, you heard me. He took the time to listen. So I get, that's a rabbit trail there. But great job for Ricketts, whether you agree with him or not. Great handling of that for our business anyway, for Around the Bend. But back to what we did inside the walls, all hands on deck. Everybody, just pivot. You asked, what does pivot mean? Spaghetti on the wall. Hey, we're going to try this.
Yep.
Boom, it worked great. Awesome. You throw spaghetti on the wall, something will stick, right? That's another one of Jacob's. There's Jacob again.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that we also wanted to walk the line of we're listening to what's being said, what's going on, but we don't want to be puppets. We want to have our own, we want to be able to think for ourselves and for our people and for this place.
Because this is mine. This is ours.
Yeah, we're on the line for it. We have the risk.
You don't get to tell me what how I'm going to make money.
No. Okay, so in the pivoting, I will say one funny thing was at the end of 2019, Jacob in one of our meetings said, hey, what do you guys think about online ordering? Nope. Shut it down quick. Nope.
was like, no,
we
not a chance. We're not doing
respect
that.
the people that drive all the way out here. They're sitting in our dining room. They're sitting in our bar. They're standing outside waiting. Like, they're our focus. I'm not like, and to-go's were our weak link anyways. Yeah. We're like, no, we're not doing online ordering.
Because our kitchen was not built to sustain the business that we had built.
Yep.
Which we have now done a complete kitchen upgrade and remodel,
Yep.
which that might be a whole other thing to talk about. But
so then COVID hits, and it was like, okay, Jacob, like, yep, let's do online ordering.
that's our only choice. Like, we did phones right away. I had 2 phone lines. I'm like, call these 2 phone lines and you can come in and get food. It wasn't enough, and it was shown in the first no time at all.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know how many times we came out there, sat. I knew you guys were going to be fine when I would come sit in that parking lot, and the parking lot would be full. No one could go in.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they're all waiting for the online orders. This was in the very early days, right?
Yeah, we did those, the meat bundles, the mega meat bundles.
Right.
Mega
And
meat
then,
bundles as well.
That's
Jacob, Jacob Milosik, Arc Financial.
Arc Financial in Ashland,
There's
Nebraska.
shameless, non-shameless. I don't give a crap plug for Jacob, but he's like, he worked in grocery stores, and he had a guy tell him one time, you call it a mega meat bundle, you load it with good quality beef, and you sell it for $99. That's the shtick, right? So I'm like, whatever, let's try it. And we did 25 the first time, sold out in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we did the next one was 75, and they sold out like that, gone.
Yeah.
And to the point where our meat cutter was cut until like 10:30 at night. You may have been the ones waiting for it, sitting in the parking lot while we were cutting the meat to make up for what we said we had, but we didn't have it cut yet because we thought we had plenty of time.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll sell 2 or 3 an hour, and they'll come get them. And nope, all 75 gone. And our best one was, everybody remembers the toilet paper pandemic part of the pandemic. Couldn't find toilet paper. Well, we had some stockpiled because of Cisco. We didn't have anybody in the business running or working.
So we had
dining, so we had all this toilet paper.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, we're going to do a $99 mega meat bundle. We're going to load it with 20 burgers, 20 steaks, and 2 rolls of toilet paper, and we got 200 of them. And we did them ahead of time, cut, froze, packaged in the freezer, ready to go. Here we go. And we did all online that time, and did a specialty website for it. And we forgot to limit it down to how many we could sell because we thought we could control it again because I'm one of the dumb kids and I keep forgetting the lessons I've learned. And we sold all 200 in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Gone.
It was like,
Well, and not only that, I mean, by the way, your marketing is so genius. But, and I want to get to one other thing because I just crack up every time I see your marketing. But yeah, I mean, it also helped that beef was kind of, in this kind of weird state of flux as well.
I do want to remind everyone that support your local small producers, not restaurants necessarily. Hazard Beef is one of our great friends. Phenomenal beef. Support small businesses because not that long ago, the Walmarts and the big companies, they didn't have it.
yeah.
Like, we're so quick to forget. Keep supporting those smaller businesses because
Rake's
they
Beef.
were there. Rake's Beef and
We
Ashland.
did. We actually, like the weekend after COVID hit, we had a
we're doing a
collaboration with them.
So I just don't forget about them. That was I had to throw that in there. I'm
it's
sorry.
such a great. No. I'm glad you did. One other marketing thing I've got to ask you about. One of my favorites of all time was the Jimmy Kimmel spinoff with the letters to Lincoln and Omaha. Can we please come together?
Yeah.
And of course, coming together with Lincoln and Omaha right there in Ashland off the interstate.
The halfway point.
What inspired that? That was one of my favorites.
So that was when we were working with Red Thread out of Lincoln, a marketing company out of Lincoln. We had started to just dabble in some videos, and they were running our Facebook page for us a little bit. And I said earlier, Tiffany is the woe to my go. I'm always go, 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 go. That marketing team was great as to where we had to pull them back a lot. Like, there was at one point, Adam wanted me to be in the front yard, buck naked with a sensor bar over my goodies, doing something I don't even know what. But
it's like, it doesn't matter what. They're just gonna see.
They're just gonna see you naked in the front yard and want to come eat. I'm like, no, they're not.
I was
That's
like,
the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
But that's how you want your marketing company. You don't want to have to be
reel
trying
them
to
back.
pull
That's right.
things out of them and be like, okay, let's.
So that was part of a campaign. Meet halfway. We are 31.2 miles from the Woodman Tower, and we're 30.5 miles from the state capitol in Lincoln. So we're literally halfway. And we all know that there's this little bit of beef between Lincoln and Omaha. See what I did there? Beef. There's this beef between Lincoln and Omaha.
it's called Round the Bend Steakhouse.
Exactly. Wow, that's a good one. We didn't even. There's a beef between Lincoln and Omaha, and it's Round the Bend. Write that down.
I don't have anything.
I got a pen.
We'll listen to the
We'll listen to the
podcast.
podcast.
Anyway, and I didn't really know about it, but in business is kind of the executive level. I guess there's this like, we're Omaha, we're better. We're Lincoln, we're better. There's this fight and battle. And they were like, I think it'd be awesome if it was called the brotherhood together. Let's meet, MEAT, meet in the middle. Let's meet it around the bend. And it started and it caught fire and people loved it. Obviously that's 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah,
and I remember that.
I tell you what, I just went and found it not too long. I think it's still out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
it's
I
when
get
he had
a
hair.
kick out of it. Yeah.
I had hair and no beard.
Well, the marketing is
so
awesome.
much.
You're welcome.
Every business owner has that hiccup too, right? Where they learn so much. And, you shared with me, and you guys have been great with your vulnerability and honesty today. But one other thing you shared was, hey, Bella Meat Market was not necessarily a great success. Something you tried, a little endeavor that failed. And first off, just kind of tell us what Bella Meat Market was. But then the biggest thing is what you learned from it.
Yeah, Bella Meat Market was honestly a brainchild of Tiffany's. She wanted to be able to give high quality proteins to families at home. Get it to their table. Still kind of reeling from the COVID, and the grocery stores didn't have our back, and she wanted to be able to have people's back. So she kind of came up with this softer side, this female side of meat. Like, so many places can focus on the carnivore and the heart of man, and come in and look at the Liver King. You've seen him, big muscle bound, bearded. We're meat eaters, and Tiff's more like, well,
but there's a lot
wives
of
are the ones that make dinner.
Yeah,
and
I was like,
purchasing
there's a lot
options
of
and
female hearts in the kitchen.
So it was Bella Meat Market, and it was Tiffany blue and black, and it was soft, and Tiffany was kind of the face of it. And we did some cooking at home with our products, and it was round the bends meat, and we cut it and packaged it for Bella Meat Market, and would sell it from there. And we went pretty big, pretty fast. Put a little corner in round the bend.
We got some national traction with it, like recognition. We were in a magazine with, her name is Girl Robin. She's out of Florida. She was just launching like a female magazine, and she was pushing towards females grilling. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like going to this little marriage. And that worked well. And then all of a sudden it was trying to figure out how to ship nationally.
Yeah,
like,
and that's really expensive. And time. And then neither one of us, so Tiff and I are college dropouts. I went for a semester. You got your nursing,
my CNA,
and never really pursued it after that.
Your career was the best investment you ever made.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we didn't really have the ability to keep it going because I had to focus on round the bend so much and keep it moving and growing. And Tiff needed me, and that needed me full time in Bella to grow it and get it to the point where it could be self sustaining. And we just sat down at home one night and we're like, you know what? Izzy's 9 years old. She's going to be out of the house in 10 years. We can do all these extra ventures. Tiff is saying this. She's like, we can do all these extra ventures after she's gone. I want to be a mom. We've worked really hard for her to be a stay-at-home mom. And I think that's the biggest lesson we learned is you don't have to grow and be huge and keep growing and growing. Like, find your lane, find your comfortable area, and it's okay to be comfortable. It's okay if you can't afford the biggest house or the nicest car. Wealth, again, go back to what we defined as wealth. It's time together. And we started to see some things slip in our daughter. And we don't need the money. We don't need that recognition. I really want my daughter, like, again, those things you dream about. I hope at my daughter's wedding someday she stands there and says, Dad and Mom, all the sacrifices you made for me, I remember those things. And you have, like, we want to be that. Not, I remember Mom and Dad worked really hard and had a lot of businesses, but we never really knew each other.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest lesson from Bella. And I learned it through you, Tiff, that you kind of laid that out. Like, it hit her like a Mack truck. We've only got 10 summers left with Izzy.
Yeah. And I kind
really
of
want to do that?
Had that pull in me of like, if this is an eternal calling, like if this is a calling from God, like there's not expiration dates on that. And I do have an expiration date at some point when my daughter's childhood is over. And was just kind of like, okay. But I did have a little pull on the side of I wanted to be a strong female influence for her and to have her, because it was all under me, under my LLC, like all of that. And so I don't know, probably a day, I felt it was like, this is such a failure. Like, she's going to see how I failed in this area. And then there was kind of a circling back around of like, but she's going to see that both of us with this steakhouse and with our realty and all of that. And like, is she really going to be like, oh, because that meat market didn't work out, Mom?
That
Like,
one little piece of
I can't
your
look at
business
you.
life failed.
I can't look up to you and trust that, like,
Yeah. And I remember
you did the best for us. I don't know. It was.
You had one of the funny things that out of that, she had a Yukon, a GMC Yukon XL, and we had it wrapped with Bella Meat Market, and it was all flashed out. It looked gorgeous.
Yeah, it was
God, they did a
awesome.
great job on that. And I told her, I was like, okay, we've closed it down and stuff. I'll get to that this weekend and get it peeled off and stuff so we don't have it. And I came home, and it was off. And I went inside, and she had a glass of wine, and she's like, that was so therapeutic. I'm just done now. It's gone. And I was like, whoop. Need another glass of wine, honey?
Yeah, it was.
You good? So that was funny out of that. But yeah, answer to your question, biggest lesson for me through that was there's an expiration on our kids' childhood, and there's a lot of value in that. Way more value than starting another business or whatever.
Yep.
So
Well, and it's not uncommon. I mean, I've seen great, successful, and round the bend. Oh my gosh. The number one thing I can tell you why I know how successful your business is, and I was sharing this with you guys beforehand. When I go in there and have dinner, there's going to be a little wait. And I always say, you don't ever want to go to a restaurant where you can always immediately get in, right?
Right.
Plus, I love the atmosphere in the lounge.
Yeah.
So it's that's a bonus for me. But love it. And there's no doubt that I've seen so many business owners who have been amazingly successful. And they just try a little venture and maybe stub their toe. And so it's so common, but I think it's something that everyone can learn from as
absolutely.
well.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Guys, we've talked for an hour, more than an hour, hour and 3, hour and 4. And I could go on and on. I've got another page of questions, but this has been amazing. And I think the thing from me today that I take away from this is how your values, right? Your faith and your values really drive so much of what you stand for. And, I love your place and you know it. And
Absolutely.
I had a ball today just getting to know you guys better and the story behind it all. Yeah. So thank you so much. For
Absolutely. It's our
on.
pleasure. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming up and, love to come back up again and continue the conversation of, walk through COVID some more. We've got the Testicle Festival we can talk about.
Yes.
Yep.
We've got,
And a brand new, talk to real quick about that brand new kitchen. You guys have expanded. The kitchen's beautiful. You got a big ballroom in the back. I mean, there's a lot of new things going on there.
Yeah. Just the kitchen came, through COVID. We were so blessed. We actually grew through COVID. The RTB Nation, as I call them, our people. You're part of RTB Nation, Tim. Like, you are our people that keep us going. We knew that we had a problem, and it was our kitchen. You come in for dinner on Friday or Saturday night, and you'd wait an hour for your food after you ordered it. We just couldn't put it out. So we reinvested. We re-upped in the kitchen. We doubled the size of our kitchen. We have brand new state-of-the-art dual kitchen, 100% mirror imaged. We can put food out if I've got the A team, which employment is a little hard to keep everybody retained. But if we can have our A team, I can put food out on a Friday or Saturday night at the busiest point. We can roll tickets in 15 to 20 minutes. No problem. Like, easily with our eyes closed. It's just so easy and simple, and we're not at each other's throats to do it. We added 2,500 square feet of storage and prep area, which we've actually already grown out of because our ballroom, the event space you talk about, my nephew Kale, he's our event coordinator. He's growing that thing through Bella Meat Market. Another thing we had was Chad, our banquet chef and head meat cutter now. He has stayed with us through Bella. He has been a great addition to our company. We have got the staff that we do have are phenomenal. They are incredible. They are our family. We will do anything we can to better their life. We hope they're with us a long time, but sometimes it's a very brief time. We just hope we can impact them, not influence them in a good way. Mm-hmm. And we're just growing. It's been awesome. It's been a lot of fun. It's been hard sometimes. Yeah. Events that happened right after we opened our new kitchen, lost some key players, had to let some key players go. And it was, what's God doing here? Mm-hmm. And we're still in that season. It's been a year and a half, and we're still in the, God, what are you doing? Yep. We've lost 2 other people here the last couple of days. Had to let one go, and another one chose to walk out and made himself a customer instead of what did they call that? Upgraded himself to a customer. But anyway, it just, what are you doing, God? What are we doing? How are we doing this? And we're just in it. Like, it's going to be fun to sit back in 5 years and sit with you and have another discussion and go, hey, remember when we were talking about how short-staffed we were? Now I've got this crew, and this has been awesome, and we had to put another addition on, and the dining room has grown, and I put a cigar. My dreams, I want to put a cigar area in where you can come and have a glass of whiskey after dinner and a cigar and see some of those gorgeous sunsets, because there's not a better sunset than there is at Round the Bend Steakhouse.
That's the one thing I was going to say. For those who haven't been there, up on the hill, see forever.
Yep.
And I mean, it is beautiful country out there.
Yep.
So
beautiful wildlife, the rolling hills of the Platte River Valley. You can
Yeah.
see the bends, the beautiful fields. You know, it's just not that far from Lincoln or Omaha. You can jump on the interstate. You can be there in 20, 25 minutes. And it's just a slowdown.
Yeah.
It's just a slowdown. Have that quality time gathered around our table. That's what we shoot for.
That's what I love about it. And by the way, don't forget about those golfers with the cigar bar over at your place when you get that in there.
Absolutely.
You got a couple of golf courses, will get some of them in there. But you guys have done an amazing job. And we got to have part 2. It'll be quicker than 5 years.
All
We
right.
got to have part 2 sometime.
Happy to come back. Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.